Hello, everyone. Welcome to this special moment. Thank you for joining us. This is the day where we launch the wire edge binding tutorial that I made with Daniel Kelm. Before we start, I have a disclaimer. So initially, our plan was to do this live. However, we ran into technical issues and decided not to do it live. So what you're seeing right now is a video that we recorded. Hey Dan, how are you?
Doing well, Ben. Thank you so much. How are you today?
Great, great, great. So you have not seen a physical copy of your tutorial yet.
They
And
arrived 2 days ago, and I've been dying to open them up, but I haven't. So this will be the first.
yeah, very cool. So at some point during this recording, you're gonna open this in for the first time and in front of everyone. How do you feel about that?
Oh, excited. Yeah, I've been excited. It's been a great process with you and Kika, and I love what I've seen online very much. It's beautiful, but to hold the actual object, it's going to be very special.
Nice, nice, nice. Well, Dan, I don't think you need much of an introduction, but maybe there's still some people out there who don't know who you are. So, would you like to give us the elevator's pitch of your who you are, what you do, and whatever you want to say about yourself?
Now, do we have a couple hours for this?
It's an elevator's pitch, so it's just a few.
Oh, now I understand. Yes. Um, oh, I was a chemist when I was really young, and I really thought I was going to go that direction. But after studying chemistry and philosophy and teaching chemistry, organic and general chemistry at University of Minnesota, I decided I was way up into my head too much, and I wanted to get into my body more. And so I went right from the chemistry and philosophy departments to the library bindery on campus and started making Class A library bindings. I loved books. I read all the time, incessantly. Um, I had a walk-in closet in my apartment in Minnesota. There was no insulation in the apartment. And, back then in Minnesota, it would be 35, 40 below occasionally. That's Fahrenheit. And so I did what Faust did. I insulated myself by using books. I put books on all the walls, and I'd sit in there and I'd just read all the time. And so it was a natural for me because I loved books so much and I wanted to make things that I started making books. But the funny thing is, after years of academia, I uh, I ran away from words. I ran away from reading. After I left academic life, I didn't read really for another 5 years probably because I didn't trust words anymore. They felt cheap. I thought pretty successfully um, and compellingly justify any philosophical system, and that just didn't seem real to me. So I wanted something real, and books, which I could hold in my hand, were real to me.
Yeah.
But I made books and didn't read. So it's kind of an odd thing.
All right. And so from that you became a bookbinder, or how do you like to call yourself these days? How do you,
Well, it took me a long time to hang up a sign that said Daniel E. Kelm Bookbinder, because I thought, oh my goodness, when I do that, people are going to come to me and want their books bound. So it was, I had no artistic background. I built things as a kid all the time. But when I moved to the western part of Massachusetts, I started working with David Bourbeau, and there was a huge community of book artists and illustrators, writers, and I collaborated with them. So I discovered my own artistic voice by collaboration with other book artists, and that really brought me along.
yeah.
And so, yes, I started calling myself a book binder first. I was slow to adopt that phrase.
Yeah.
And then after I had made a bunch of my own work, I started calling myself a book artist.
So you've had your own studio for how long now, Dan?
Oh, I started, let's see, I started doing books in 1977, 78, and then opened well, even while I was working at Harcourt Bindery as finisher and edge gilder in Boston and learning leather binding, traditional craft binding.
Yeah.
I had my own studio at home, so I guess I have a studio. I've always had a studio going back practically to the beginning, 78 maybe.
Right. Yeah, that's a long time. I've been in business 15 years. So that's to me
Oh,
that's a
you're
long time.
just a youngster, aren't you?
I am a youngster for sure. By the way, I was gonna maybe people are want to know how come we know each other and
Hmm.
what sort of relationship we have. And I figured out the other day that for me, we go back very long because we've known each other 15 years. Uh,
Hmm.
for someone who is turning 40 this year, that's a long that's do you remember how we first met and how what happened?
Well, what I remember now, I'm old, so my memory is not as good as yours, but I believe it was when you came over to the States. So you contacted me and wanted to visit my studio. Is that what you remember?
Yeah, I think before that we had at one point I discovered your work and I was flabbergasted, and then I sent you an email and we had a correspondence
Hmm.
for a little while. I remember you used because there's there's some of the things that I do or that I thought I was the first one to have ever done that you were actually already doing. And there were lots of similarities. And I remember you using the word uncanny, which I had to look up.
Hmm.
I didn't know what it meant. And at some point, I made a trip to the US, yeah, and then I contacted you and said, "Hey, yeah, I'm going to be on the East Coast.
Hmm.
Can we hang out?" And you said, "Yeah, sure." And you invited me to your house. I stayed in your guest room. You took me out for dinner. It was incredible. And then you showed me a studio. About your studio, I remember two specific things. I remembered you were quite keen on burning stuff.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and that's yeah, at some point you're like, Ben, have you ever burned a ping pong ball?
Oh yes, yes, yes.
No, I haven't. Let me show you how that goes. What I
Yes.
remember is it makes a funny, beautiful color or something. I don't know what it was, but it was
Hmm. Oh, it
spectacular.
burns very beautifully. It's nitrocellulose. The old ones are,
Oh,
and
okay.
they burn beautifully.
Right. And
But
then
the reason that I liked burning things was that there's a transformation there. It's quite a stunning transformation. And going way back to when I was a kid, I like to figure out how things changed. And that's fire is just mesmerizing, and there's so much going on that it really attracted me.
yeah. Yeah, some call you an alchemist, and
Hmm.
it was interesting. I don't know what you think about that, but well, we're going to talk about it in maybe later too. But this tutorial is your project, but you couldn't come over to Europe to our place in Harlem to have it to do the photo shoot because of COVID and a number of other things. And so we decided that you were going to teach me the
Hmm.
structure, and then I was your your avatar.
Hmm.
So in the tutorial, people will see it's actually my hands,
Hmm.
and the photo shoot was really intense. It was 3 days of 12-hour days, really intense, and the preparation led to the photo shoot was also I looked yesterday on my timekeeping record, and it appears that I spent 150 hours leading up to
Hmm.
the tutorial. That includes the amount of time, the tuition time, but also the time for me to get prepared.
Hmm.
And that there was something really interesting after after the photo shoot, the weekend after that, I found myself grinding stones with my 4-year-old son. We I was just compelled to, I felt compelled and really interested in finding stones and then grinding them with a mortar and producing
Hmm.
powder. And
Hmm.
okay, it's my new hobby. I don't know. And I showed, I share that with people, and it's only when people starting calling me, oh, Ben the Alchemist, that
Ha
you
ha ha ha.
notice the link there.
Hmm.
There was something incredible, as if I don't know what it is, but some of your personality had
Hmm.
come into me or something. But it didn't last. It didn't last very long after that. It was gone almost immediately. But it just was so interesting. But anyway, the subject of this tutorial is the wire edge binding.
Hmm.
Would you like to explain to us where that came from, the idea, maybe do a quick history of it, and maybe
Sure.
some samples?
Yeah. Back early on in, when I started doing bookbinding, I was doing all sorts of different structures. My goal was to make books open very easily, unless, if someone or if myself came up with an idea that, say I wanted to do a book on stubbornness, I would use a structure that opens stubbornly because the structure itself would enhance the narrative that it contained. But otherwise, we all want the books to open easily. And people were bringing photographs to me to make photographic albums, and often the photographs were printed on thick paper and then maybe even mounted on something else. And so the challenge was, how do I take rigid material and make it open smoothly and easily? So that was the challenge. And here I'm going to switch cameras so that I can show a couple of models. Back in 1984, I was making um, a 5, I call it a sub edition. Barry Moser has Pennyroll, or at that point had Pennyroll Press very nearby, and I'd gotten to know him, and I decided to do 5 copies of his Frankenstein. And so this was the flap that I made for the box. So this held the flap to the box, and I needed to figure out how to clasp the flap to the box. And this was before I used magnets. So I was going to use a mechanical um, connection. And you can see that what I did was I put here, let me zoom in just a little bit more. So I put a wire. That's a 16th inch diameter wire, so 1.5 millimeter diameter wire in the edge of the flap and wrapped the cloth around it to trap it. And then the wire was exposed, and that's what the clasp would connect to close the flap. Well, I
Yep.
looked at that and I thought, well, that would be a good edge for binding because I could sew thread around that wire and attach it to the next one.
Yeah.
So then I made a model using that structure. I'm going to back out a little bit again here. And this is the model. It's a photographic, just set up. It's
Perfect.
very quickly done.
You realize
So
you can sew,
pardon?
you realize you can connect one of these panel with wire to another by
Yes,
means
here. Let
of
me
binding.
zoom in a little bit.
Great, great. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so you can see here's one panel,
yeah.
here's another panel. So these two are connected by all of those threads
Yeah, yeah,
that are wrapped around the wires. And this is a codex, so it has multiple panels
yeah,
that hinge and can move very, very smoothly
yeah.
and without resistance. So it
And
lays flat.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I can see that. And then you expanded from that to more complex shapes, right?
Right. Covers that were not just the same as the panels. The accordion, I decided I wanted to do accordion books with this too, which requires a slightly different knot because it's only two wires held to each other.
Can you show us some finished models of
Sure,
book? Okay.
sure. Let's look at a codex first. So here, codex, and I'll zoom in a little bit to see that. I mean, it's hard to see unless you're right here holding it, but what you're looking at is the side view of all the knots that hold one wire to the next, to the next, to the next.
Yeah.
So it looks a little braided,
Yeah.
or, like it's woven.
Yeah.
This was an edition that I did with Granary Books. It's an early wire edge binding, but you can see it opens very easily. This was a book called Synesthesia. Text is by Terence McKenna, and the imagery in the book is by Tim Mealy. And I would call this, it's letterpress printed. All of the black is letterpress done by Phil Gallo at Hermetic Press. But it's a variable edition because all of the painting in the book, all of the wash drawings, were done by Tim on a full sheet of paper, and took 2 sheets of paper to make each book. We did 75 copies. And then I got the paper with the wash drawings, cut them down into slightly oversized to wrap around the wire. So it'd be, just a little bit wider than this, a little bit taller. Sent them to Phil Gallo, who did all of the letterpress printing. And then he sent them back to me, and I bound the book. And then Tim did all of the drawing, all of the finer drawing. Here, I'll bring it up a little bit. So all of that fine line is Tim's drawing done in the bound copy.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So he did 75 this way. So variable edition.
That's great because that sort of shows answers the question of what to bind with it, because I'm sure people are going to be wondering, okay, this is a nice, beautiful three-dimensional object, but how do I integrate content? It's not a structure. I mean, I know you have developed also a wire edge method for traditional signatures,
Yep.
but we don't talk about that in the tutorial. So it's basically you create a stiff panel which can be printed before, which is covered with a paper that can be printed beforehand, or can be done blank and ornated afterwards, or a mixture of both. Right.
Yeah, so I did this, and then I thought, okay, the panels are thick. I wanted these rigid panels, and then I thought the thickness of the panel could be used. So I'll show another example. Here's another codex. So same sort of 3 knotting stations, but in this case, it's a combination of text, so letterpress printed, but then you get into the book and there are these images, photographs here, and I'll come in a little bit closer so that you can see the photographs.
So how do you make that? Can you show us?
Yes, I've got a model here I can show you. So we'll zoom back out. And these I consider archival structures because there's no glue that touches the photograph. So this represents one of those panels. In this structure, there's a wire. So here's the hinging edge for the codex, and there's the wire that goes into this hinging edge. And then because there were photographs, there's a core board, and I did a 2-layer core board here, black and white 2-ply museum board. And I did it in 2 colors just to so that you could see the contrast between the 2 layers. The back layer is solid all the way through the page, but then this upper layer has a window cut out that can hold an image, a photograph or a print, and then the wire goes in, and the wrapping paper has a mat cut out that's just a little bit smaller, like for me, 1/4 of an inch. So it'd be, what's that, 6 millimeters. overlap, and that traps the image in that well. So there's no adhesive touching this.
Yeah, yeah, perfect. Yeah, yeah.
So I considered it archival that way. The adhesive is all the way around. And it has happened that the T-book that I showed as an example of this structure, someone dropped a copy and dented all the corners. So I was able to cut the windows open, release the photographs, and then rebind the book.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's great. And so you've come up with that over 30 years ago, and you've used it in your work. You've taught it widely, I believe, but you've never done a tutorial, made a book out of it, a manual,
I
right?
was waiting for you and Kika. People started asking me right from the get-go when I started teaching wire edge binding, are you going to do a book? And I always said, yes, I am going to do a how-to book. But I was so busy. I was working probably 60 hours a week in my studio, minimum 60. I was working 7 days a week, a lot of all-nighters, and I just never found the time to do that. So I kept saying that for years and years and years. And then you and I met, and you have that wonderful series of tutorials. And then you posed the question to me, can we do one for Wire Edge? And I was thrilled.
It's fantastic. So maybe it's a good time to for you to open and find discover.
Oh no, I lost it. Where is it? Oh, here it is. Yes, so here we go. It says Daniel on it, so I know it's my copy. Oh boy. Now, did you play a joke on me? Is there a tutorial in here?
This little devil that comes out.
Right. Oh, there it is. There it is. Oh, it's wrapped up. Okay. I'm usually pretty patient about saving the paper and that sort of thing, but not so much today. Oh, there it is. Here, I'll zoom in a little bit. First look. Yes. Right. And it's important to note here that, we say presented and written by Ben. We went back and forth a lot on how this was going to be produced. And it just made sense because you had done all the other tutorials that you do the writing, but then I consult with you. So thank you so much for taking that on.
Yeah, you're welcome. It was a kind of collaboration in the sense that that I also you gave me free carte blanche to also to put a twist on things as well.
Oh, yes.
That made it particularly enjoyable for me. So I could develop some slight alterations to very minor to the technique that made it feel more like mine. So it was it's kind of real.
Yeah, well, this is your series, so it was important to me for you to feel like it was yours, and but I'm just so thrilled. And this is the first time I'm seeing these illustrations. Those are beautiful. They're really clear, really show things well. Yeah, because in the everything that I've seen online, those have been quick drawings, but that looks beautiful. And there's so much information in here. Yeah, let's come in a little bit closer. Let's see, I don't want to cut it off.
So it's in 2 languages too, French.
Yep, we got French and English. Now, originally you were doing 3 languages. Did you find that there was just not enough room for the 3?
That's one part of it, and the other part of it is what was it? I don't know. Yeah, it's too much actually too much work as well. And
yeah, to do all the translations. And as you said, that you really made this your own, which I really appreciate. You started using paper drills for the punching.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And that's just so clean. I was using the Japanese hole drill in workshops, or I've built machines that basically are the same as the hole drill, you know, parallel sides, which makes a cleaner hole. But in the workshops, the angle of the Japanese bit really
It was
it doesn't make as clean a hole.
Yeah, yeah. It was actually Paul Slot, a photographer. When I showed him the first sample I did, he commented that he thought the holes were not super clean.
Hmm.
Oh,
Yeah, so thank you. I mean,
okay.
you really you added your expertise, and I really appreciate that. And I acknowledge that in the first bit of writing, that I'm really happy that you brought your experience to this. I mean, look at all this information, all of this, all of these images. It's really beautifully laid out. Oh,
Yeah,
yes, and then iron. So, you know, in my studio, I use dry mount presses, but people don't have those at home, of course. So this is all written from the perspective of someone wanting to do this at home. And
yeah,
so a clothes iron works very well for that.
exactly. Yeah, we applied the usual philosophy of this should work for somebody with no equipment,
Yes.
or
And
chopper.
to go back to your here, I'm going to switch cameras so that thank you so much. It's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you for trusting us with that.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's been an absolute honor. I have no, I'm short of words to say that. I'm feel so honored.
Yes.
Amazing.
And you know, you had asked earlier about, or we had talked earlier about level. You know, who is this for?
Yeah,
And the workshops, you know, when I first started teaching workshops in my school, the Garage Annex School for Book Arts, I was really interested in finding experienced students. But then I quickly realized that you get the whole range.
yeah,
So this workshop, as the workshops that I did, were geared to any level.
yeah.
Um, and the tutorial is the same way. This is geared to any level. Someone who's done no books at all before can do this.
Yeah. How long do you think it takes to make each project?
Oh, this, you know, you could do it in a day. It's a 2-day workshop that in when I teach this. And so you
Okay.
make the simpler structure, which is the codex, the first day, because it only has one wire per panel, and the rest of the edges are cut clean. And then the accordion, which has wrap on all edges, is done the second day, so that you can build on the information from the first day.
Yeah, I think I can see that the time is running,
Yes.
and so maybe it's time for well, I'm going to be popping the champagne in a minute. Uh,
Okay.
but I want to take the opportunity to thank everyone who's been involved in this project. I'm gonna thank your wife, Dan, Greta, who's been
Hmm.
instrumental for this project. Then there's Paul Slot, our photographer, our testers. So that's when we do this and it's ready. It's not clean, it's not perfect at all, but it's at a stage where people can comprehend it. We send a number of people a proof version along with the material pack, and they test it, and we hear their feedback, and then we correct. It's really important. And this time, our testers are Paul Garcia, Annie Prin, Laurie Sauer, Keith Stuckless, Elizabeth Champommier, and Tine Noraye. The Kike Schaper is mentioned as for the drawings, but of course she did plenty of other things. And then there's our proofreaders, Laurie Sauer for the English and Elisabeth Champommier for the French, and our great printers, Imprest, Druck, and Print in Pijnacker. Okay, I think we're getting really close. So let's open this up. You've got a drink on your end too, or not?
I do. I do.
Where is it? Okay, here it is.
I'll
6,
hold
5,
this over my heart.
4, 3, 2, 1.
Ah.
Here we go. Ah. Our floor will remember that moment.
Yes.
Cheers.
Cheers.
And
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for that. And thanks for watching, everyone. Thanks to everybody who purchased the version, who pre-purchased the tutorial before it was made. That was very, very appreciated and helpful. And we hope everyone who buys it will enjoy making this project, and we'll make lots of beautiful things with it. Dan, cheers again.
Ben, thank you so much.
Thank you, and till next time. Bye then.